In 2025, Walibi Holland in the Netherlands debuted the first ever dueling Raptor coasters from Rocky Mountain Construction. This pair of single rail coasters would feature a thrill side and a chill side, combining two fundamentally different layouts and a varied ride experience, with one side dominantly focusing on inversions and the other airtime. The ride is pronounced joy, however it is spelled YoY, Y-O-Y. That is not a Dutch thing, that is a Walibi thing. I know, it's weird. From my understanding, they did it because it looks symmetrical. It's a reference to how there's two different sides. It's an interesting concept. Walibi Holland has always been known for their off-the-wall, bizarre theming elements, and Joy is no different. Both sides stand 95 feet tall, feature a drop of 89 feet, a top speed of around 50 miles per hour, and green side goes upside down 6 times, the most inversions on any other RMC coaster in the world. And if you're keeping track, the previous record was actually held by Untamed in the very same park. Walibi Holland now officially has the most RMCs in one park with 3 different rides. Untamed made its debut in 2019 and instantly became a smash hit, being declared one of the best roller coasters in the world. They clearly had a very positive experience with the RMC, and so now they went with something different, RMC's other big roller coaster model, the Raptor track. Joy is the first RMC single rail coaster in Europe. We've now seen several of these pop up throughout the US. They're starting to build momentum in Asia. Now we got one in the Netherlands, meaning this is an extremely unique ride for this market. For many people, I know this is their first RMC Raptor, and I think that's led to some interesting reactions. When the ride was first announced, I was beyond excited for this addition. The concept of weaving two drastically different ride experiences into one creation with perfect synchronization is so freaking cool, and dueling coasters are becoming more and more rare nowadays. My excitement was high, so you can imagine my surprise when the first initial reviews were coming out and were very mixed. I've talked to a lot of people who have experienced this ride, and I've come to the conclusion that this is easily RMC's most divisive ride. It's the only time I've heard blatantly negative reviews of an RMC coaster, which I was really surprised by because every other Raptor coaster I've ridden, I've genuinely enjoyed. And in the US, the Raptors are very well received. I think it made me even more intrigued to go out and try it for myself, and after experiencing it in June 2025, I can confidently say I do not agree with the hate. I had so much fun on this attraction. In this review, I'm going to tell you all about my experience on Joy, walk through each of the 2 layouts, their big moments, and discuss more about the public's reaction, specifically what some people are not loving and why. But first, let's add a little context. Joy was built on an empty plot of land in between Goliath and Express Platform 13. It caused for a whole new plaza and pathways to be built surrounding the attraction, further expanding the park's footprint. There's so much visual interest to this area, and in general, it's very well laid out. The main entry is a connection point to Goliath's Plaza. However, you can also access it by Condor via this little hidden pathway through the woods. It's actually pretty cool. There's track everywhere you look, and it is stunning. Those colors pop with the bright sun, and you can hardly keep track of where those trains are headed next. It is one massive spaghetti bowl of track, each side over 2,000 feet long. And with how thin that track is, from above, this really looks like a bowl full of spaghetti. Joy's entrance can be found in between the Top Gun stall and these 2 pairs of overbanks. It's this massive tree structure with chill on one side and thrill on the other. Down the middle is where you would go for your express or single rider entrances. It makes sense that you have a separate entrance for each side because their layouts are so different. But the unfortunate downside is because the lengths of each line naturally is going to vary, it means timing up with your friends on the other train so that you can duel each other is hard. The odds are not great, but if you do get the opportunity to duel your friends, it absolutely does add to the experience. It's a very cool sensation with this ride constantly crossing over itself. The queue is well laid out, pretty much a straight shot to the station. There is some sort of like abstract art to the side, which is kind of the vibe of this coaster. I think green is meant to symbolize land and blue symbolize the ocean. It's pretty much whatever you make of it. Before you climb aboard, there are dual-sided lockers, so you can put your items in one way, retrieve them as you exit. Like most of the other Raptor coasters, Joy does feature a constantly moving loading platform. You gotta be quick and efficient with climbing aboard, which is very doable. All you do is sit down, pull the bar down over your head. There's no seatbelt, nothing to buckle. Operations in general for this attraction have been very strong. That also means you're pretty much always guaranteed a duel. Even on the rare occasions where one side was lagging behind, they would almost always hold the other train so the other could catch up. Those lift hills are so well programmed that there was never any worried of, oh, are we gonna duel? Which frankly is a very valid concern with most modern day dueling coasters. So many parks choose to only run one side, or aren't too bothered if they actually cross over. That is absolutely not the case here at Walibi Holland, and I love to see it. I think one of the biggest things that I was impressed with was that synchronization, that the timing is so brilliantly done. Even down to when you're dispatching out of the station, starting that ascent up, the chains have some pull to them, so suddenly one side will surge forward and you're like, ah, crap, we're lagging behind, but then suddenly you pull forward and now you're ahead, and you just keep going back and forth, eventually perfectly lining up at the top, 95 feet in the air, making this one of the shorter Raptor coasters. For reference, a ride like Stunt Pilot is 105 feet tall, but Fire Runner is only 92 feet tall, so this is not the shortest RMC Raptor. You'll swiftly bank to the right in this like half turnaround. It reminds me a lot of the start of Wildfire at Colmartin, how you do like a panoramic turn before the drop. This, however, is a lot better paced. Green side will duck under blue, switching from the left side to now the right, and they will enter their first of 6 inversions, a barrel roll down drop. Blue side, directly to left, will pass through a traditional first drop. Both drops stand 89 feet tall and reach a similar max speed. I believe green side is technically 1 mile per hour faster, but you would never know. They feel identical in speed. The first drop on blue is anything but chill, and that tends to be a recurring theme for this ride. You receive some very solid airtime here, especially towards the back. And honestly, green, you're floating up out of your seat too. This is a very flowy first drop, and both sides will suddenly duck under a section track that you'll pass through later and enter a speed hill. Green's is a bit higher off the ground, blue stays lower, but you're flying up no matter what. And much like the other blue and green RMC dueling coaster, Twisted Colossus, the first big element following the drop is a high five. Chill side takes it more as a wave turn, banking to your right, while green is suddenly twisting you to left and then back to the right. It is very whippy, and you absolutely feel like you could reach out and touch the riders on the other side. It is that close. So blue will drop low to the ground while green continues its rapid directional twists, this time twisting you back towards the left into a 0G stall, a very brief one, but that's where we have that Top Gun moment. Again, another signature element brought over from Twisted Colossus, where green is staring down at blue directly below. Whether you're upside down here or taking it as a speed hill, regardless, you are out of your seat. Don't be deceived. Just because thrill side is inversion focused doesn't mean it doesn't have airtime. And this is our first moment when the two tracks will actually split away from each other. And this is critical because this is really what separates a racing coaster from a dueling coaster. Dueling coasters have those head-to-head moments. Racing coasters will stay side by side the whole time. So that's why Stardust Racers, as the name suggests, is a racing coaster. This next big moment are these two massive overbank turns, one crossing above the other. Greenside takes the more drawn-out, higher turn, which technically does count as an inversion. It's profiled in a way that it does reach cutback status, just ever so slightly twisting you so that you're technically upside down. Chill, on the other hand, following that Top Gun stall where it's like banked slightly to the left in this ejector airtime hill, drops right up against the ground, suddenly throwing you to the left, ducking through the structure, and then into a big camelback airtime hill where right as you're dropping down, green is throwing you into a corkscrew. Another epic moment where just because of that perfect synchronization, the two trains get ridiculously close to each other. It's a very smooth, flowy inversion that just feels natural. And then suddenly green will begin banking directly to the left again, passing through another head-to-head moment with blue. Following blue's big camelback hill, it had banked riders to the right, now ducking under greenside and into this fast-paced S-bend. That's all happening while greenside is banking directly up against the ground to the left and then flipping straight into a barrel roll. It is so low to the ground here, it is awesome, and now we're ready for the big grand finale. Both sides meet back up and begin heading the same direction back towards the station, each side intertwining with the other, eventually leading to the DNA roll. The other big signature element of Joy, thrill side is hitting its sixth and final inversion, a corkscrew, while chill has these fast-paced S-bends, and then both sides bank directly to the left, hitting the brake run, concluding your ride experience. Joy is not the most forceful or intense Raptor coaster, but that's done on purpose. These layouts would not exist if it weren't for the dueling factor. They are strategically designed in a way to create an exciting experience no matter which side you're on, but also generate the best crossover moments possible. I think thrill and chill are equally exciting. Don't be deceived by the name chill. It really is not. The only thing chill about it is that it doesn't go upside down, which is mildly concerning because technically this is the park's big family coaster. And it's quite the family coaster to stand 95 feet tall going 50 miles per hour with a bunch of ejector airtime. I know Walibi Holland is a thrill park, but I'd probably recommend that they invest in like a proper family coaster to help bridge that gap. Maybe something with a height requirement of like 42 inches. I know Gerstlauer does fantastic family coasters. I feel like that's probably their best bet because I wouldn't really call Chillside a family coaster, even though it's being marketed as one. As for Thrillside, I have heard some people say that they felt like the layout was repetitive because of how many inversions it had, but looking at its range of elements, the only one it doubles up on is a corkscrew. And because of how it's profiled and those crossovers with Chillside, I would argue they absolutely feel different. So I did not think that Thrillside felt repetitive at all. And pacing all around was excellent. You fly through each moment in the same way you do on the other big RMC Raptor coasters. When Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster first debuted at Fiesta, Texas, people were shocked at how fast that ride was running, saying, is this really the right speed for this coaster? And that's generally how all these rides look and feel. There is absolutely no wasted space. So that is why I like these coasters so much. The biggest complaints I have heard concerning Joy primarily follow two main things: the trains and roughness. First up, the trains, and I think this primarily concerns people who have never experienced a Raptor before. If this is your first time climbing aboard one of these trains, you might be surprised at how they feel. The seating arrangement is a little different where you have to keep your legs spread wide. The over-the-shoulder restraint is a metal bar with these seatbelt-like straps going over each shoulder. I am completely used to these restraints. They do not bother me at all. The only time that they have ever bothered me was the first generation trains like the ones on Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster, because those were very restrictive. And seeing how they've improved over the years, I've never had an issue with the Gen 2 trains. I can see how some riders might not be crazy about them. I heard some people say that it hurt their hips, or each airtime hill was painful because of the bar. As for the roughness, that I will acknowledge is a little bit more apparent here than other Raptors. These single rail coasters from RMC have never been the smoothest, which I think is ironic considering that their iBox coasters are some of the smoothest rides on the planet. But for whatever reason, the Raptor tracks have a bit more of a bite to them. And my initial reaction to each side of Joy was, that doesn't feel any different than the other Raptors I've experienced. After doing this ride over and over again, I'm slightly amending my initial thought and saying I do think that something probably happened with how the trains are adjusted or how the wheels hug the track, because it feels like the ride just needs to be dialed in a bit more. Maybe it's a manufacturing issue or shipping when they brought it over from Idaho to the Netherlands, or it could do with installation, the way the crews put it together, or maybe it comes back to design. Some of these track sections are actually sharing support columns, and maybe it's more force than they can handle. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. My gut says it's something to do with the trains. And if Walibi Holland is aware of the concerns that their guests have brought up, then perhaps this is something that they can look into improving over the off-season when they do their yearly teardowns and rebuilds. We'll have to wait and see. The inherent flaw with this track system is you can almost feel the track joints between each piece. I feel like it's more of an audible thing than a physical thing. You can hear that thud each time the wheels cross from one piece of track to the next. And it doesn't really bother me, but I can acknowledge that it is probably something they should look into improving for the future. Because I remember back when New Texas Giant opened, that had the same issue. Those iBox tracks didn't have that top layer of steel to cover up the track joints. Now, all of the iBox coasters have that, and it completely solved the problem. If there's a way they could somehow bring that here, I think it would make a big difference. If you find that you're sensitive to roughness, I would generally suggest sitting towards the front. You'll get a bit more shake to the back. I will also say I think that in particular, the back on green has the roughest spots. My main concern is if the shake is not fixable, then I do wonder how the ride will age over time. I remember when I first rode Railblazer, California's Great America, opening year 2018, I thought it ran super well. When I went back last year, 2024, 6 years later, I found that ride to be running a lot rougher. And if in its opening year, Joy is running not as smooth as they'd like it, How will that be in 5 or 10 years? It's tough to say, but for someone like me, that's not going to stop me from riding it. I think I was much more focused on the layout at hand, the different crossover moments, and that design is what kept me hopping back on board over and over and over again. This was my most ridden ride at Walibi Holland during my 2025 visits, and in general, our group thoroughly enjoyed it. So for a combined score for Joy, I'm giving the ride an 8.5 out of 10. I think the creativity within the layout design is brilliant. The ride experience, extremely fun. Is it perfect? No. Is it as good as maybe some of RMC's other Raptor coasters? Probably not. I wouldn't put this as my top Raptor, but I absolutely think it helps showcase Rocky Mountain Construction's capabilities. Even having Twisted Colossus, I don't feel like they've ever done a ride quite like this before. And I don't think the industry has ever really seen a dueling coaster like this where you have one side so fundamentally different than the other. And that broadens the appeal for riders and increases re-rideability. It's a fantastic addition to Walibi Holland. Not my favorite in the park. I still think Untamed is king, but frankly, I'd probably give this number 2. I know not everyone will agree with me, and that's fine. Walibi Holland has a very strong lineup, so if you prefer Goliath or Lost Gravity, I get it. Those are awesome rides, and I really enjoy them too. So let me know down in the comments below if you've experienced this attraction, which side you prefer, if you think there's any points that I missed, and of course, make sure to stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.